Yeah, I got this as a keynote. How long has it been?
Oh, it's been at least 4 or 5 years.
Oh, really? Wow.
And it'll give you something to focus on.
What?
We had 11 people here on Wednesday from the shofar class.
Oh, thank you. That's nice.
Yes.
Let me see something. Yeah, he's coming. He's doing the first chapter. He's supposed to.
Yeah, because I'm supposed to give them something.
You got some time. Oh, they have Torah reading this thing, yeah.
Good idea. Yeah, it'd be a good idea for you to do it now.
Okay. Just flipping through this thing. Yeah. Yeah, we will when we do that, when we go to reading. And then people use their yeah, people just use flashlights or their phone now. Yeah, yeah, the candle days are behind us right now. And some people like to sit on the floor if they can. Okay.
I can make the argument that those chairs are low chairs.
These?
I mean, it's on the floor or low chairs.
Right, right.
So more.
Right. Well, whatever people are comfortable with, we're not going to like, putting out their back or anything. Yeah. 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 I guess you can compare it to that chair. Say, see, those are low compared to that.
Yeah, most chairs are slightly higher than this, but it's
Right. Okay, we'll wait a couple minutes.
we're gonna follow that spiral.
Yeah. So yeah, make sure you pick up Siddur for Tisha B'Av. Had these for a little while. We used to have one for the morning service too, but I can't find those. But this is good for tonight. Yeah. Anyone wants to get in the mood of the black cover? Here you go. Check them all.
Hello, Michael. Hello, Sybil. Hello, hello. I do not know the name. This is Bailey. Oh, hello, Bailey. Yeah, he's the Jewish guy. I didn't know your name because I couldn't say hello to you. Sorry.
The cedar beam are on that back chair. Yeah, you'll see it. There's some large bound spiral and then the regular size. I'm going to wait a couple minutes and then we'll begin. Anyone who doesn't have a Siddur, they're in the back row on the chair there.
No, Jenny's coming home tonight.
Oh, she is coming home. I knew she was coming home.
Yeah, tonight. But I don't think she'll be here yet.
Oh, yeah, she's just getting home.
Okay, sweetie. The books are right there.
I think we can begin. First of all, I want to thank everybody for being here. I want to welcome Rabbi Mike Myman and And those who are joining us from Congregation Shalom of Seal Beach Leisure World, it's nice to have you here with us. I want to welcome anyone who's joining us on the live stream. The Tisha B'Av observance is unique in the way that we actually participate, in that we have a tradition here to recite the tefillah, not to sing it, but to recite it. And we do that specifically because it sounds awkward to our ear, and this whole evening and tomorrow is a time of reflection, a time of sadness, right? A time of mourning for a great loss to the Jewish community. So by reciting it and not singing it, what does it really do? It takes some of the joy out of the prayer, out of the davening, because it's joyful to sing together, and the melody, of course, adds beauty to what we say. But when we recite it, it's a striking contrast, and I think that's part of the purpose. There's another custom on Tisha B'Av, really not to greet one another. To me, that's the hardest thing, right? Not to say see you later, good night, take care. So I'll probably honor that more in the breach than in the than the observance. But again, it's a tradition. I mean, if you really think on it, it was 1,954 years ago on this day that the Second Temple was destroyed. And those of you who visit Israel, lived in Israel, you can see the kotel. So you can really, if you can imagine really the physical manifestation of what happened. It's not like a dream. It's not like a vision. It's something physical and real. And you can count the years, which is quite remarkable. It's also quite remarkable and a tribute to our faith and our people that we still commemorate this day, all those years later, for that and other tragedies that befell us. So it's a fast day for that reason. We refrain from eating and drinking. It's a 24-hour fast. The second of the year, of course, the other is Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur, by the way, has a much different tone, right? We pray for forgiveness and so on. But toward the latter part of Yom Kippur, it's very festive, the feeling anyway. This not so much. Tomorrow morning service, we don't wear tefillin, we don't wear talit. Again, to contrast that service from the rest of them. Talis and tefillin, again, being something that brings symbolism of joy and gratitude and connection that's just not there. And then, of course, at the mincha service, the tone starts to change. So we'll begin on page 18. I'll invite you to rise, and again, we'll recite this as such. V'hurach l'mechaper avon v'lo yashchid, v'herba l'ashiva po v'lo ya'ir kol chamato, v'nai hushi ha'melech ga'anenu v'yom koreinu. Baruchu et Adonai mevorach. Baruch Adonai mevorach le'olam va'ed. You may be seated. Let's recite in silence the next paragraph. Baruch et Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher b'vrod ma'abid b'adim v'kol v'tech. El chai v'kayam tamid yimloch aleinu le'olam va'ed. Baruch atah Adonai hama'ariv aravim. Let's recite Ahavat Olam together. Ahavat Olam Beit Yisrael Amcha Ahavta Torah u'mitzvot chukim u'mishpatim otanu limadata Al kein Adonai Eloheinu v'shachveinu v'kumenu nasiach b'chukecha v'nismach b'divrei Toratecha v'mitzvotecha le'olam va'ed ki heim chayenu v'orech yameinu v'vahem ne'egeh yomam v'layla v'advatecha al tasir mimenu le'olamim Baruch atah Adonai ohev amo Yisrael. Shema on page 20. Shema Yisrael Adonai Eloheinu Adonai echad. V'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levavecha u'b'chol nafshecha u'b'chol meodecha v'hayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavacha hayom al levavecha v'shinantam levanecha v'dibarta bam v'shivtecha b'veitecha v'lechtecha v'derech v'shachvacha u'v'kumecha v'kshartam la'od al yadecha v'ayula totafot b'neinecha v'chatavtam al mezuzot beitecha u'visharecha. We continue silently through the top paragraph of page 22. Adonai Elohechem Emet. We continue in the second paragraph of page 22. Emet ve'emunah kol zeh l'chaim elenu ki hu Adonai Eloheinu b'nei mitzvoto nafim yisrael mo'achot. Malchuto b'ratzon kiblu aleihem Moshe u'vnei Yisrael cha'anu shira b'simcha rabah v'amru chulam Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai Mi chamocha nedar ba'kodesh Norati lod osei fele Malchut chara'u v'anecha Bolkei hayam lifnei Moshe Ze'eli anu v'amru Adonai yimloch le'olam va'ed V'ne'amar kifada Adonai di'akov Ug'alo miyad chazak mimenu Baruch atah Adonai Ka'al Yisrael. Let's read together in the Hebrew the Hashkivenu prayer on the top of page 24. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu l'shalom, v'ha'amidenu malkeinu l'chayim, ufros aleinu sukat shlomecha, v'taknenu be'itza tova milfanecha, v'oshienu l'man shemecha, v'hagen ba'adenu v'haser me'aleinu, v'yev dever v'cherev v'ra'av v'yagon, v'haser satan milfanenu v'me'acharenu. V'tzel kenafecha tastirenu, kiel shomrenu umatzilenu ata, kiel melech chanun v'rachum ata, u'shmor tzeitenu b'voenu, v'chayim l'shalom me'ata v'ad olam, baruch atah Adonai, shomer amo Yisrael la'ad. We continue in the Hebrew and the English, bottom of page 24 through the middle of page 26. Baruch Adonai l'olam amen. Baruch Adonai l'olam. Malchut shel chahi le'ol me'ad timloch b'chavod, ki en lanu melech ela ata, baruch atah Adonai, hamelech b'chvodo, tamid yimloch aleinu, le'lam be'ed, v'al kol ma'asav. I invite you to rise for the Chatzi Kaddish to the bottom of page 26. Yitkadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, v'yalmad yivrach kedutei v'yamlich malchutei, b'chayechon v'yamechon v'chayei l'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'vizman kariv v'yimru. Yehei Shemei Rabbah Mevarach Le'olam Olmei Olmaya Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpa'ar V'yitromam V'yitnaseh V'yithadar V'yit'aleh V'yithalal Shemei D'Kudisha Le'ela Min Kol Berachata V'shirata D'Ushbichata V'nechemata Da'miran V'olma V'imru Amen. So we recite the Amidah in silence, beginning on page, 28 or 30, whatever your preference is. We continue on page 32 through the conclusion of the Amidah, which is found on page 38. now turn to page 40 for Kaddish Shalem, after which we'll read the Megillah of Eicha. Yikadav yikadash shemei rabba, ve'alma divrachu tev, amlich malchutei b'chaychod v'mechod v'chayedachol beit Yisrael, b'agala b'zman kariv v'yimru. Yehei shemei rabba mevarach, le'olam alamei olmaya. Yitbarach v'yishtabach, v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal, shemei d'kudisha v'yachu. Le'ila min kol birchata v'shivata, tishbachata v'nechamata, da'amiran bi'olma v'yimru. Yikabel tzloton v'utahon d'chol Yisrael, kadom v'hon v'ishmaya v'yimru. Yehesh lam rabba min shemaya v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru. Oseh shalom b'mromav, v'yaseh shalom aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru. Please be seated. So we're all are fortunate this evening to have Rabbi Mike Moshe Maimon with us, who is going to introduce the Megillah reading and say a couple words about the commemoration of Tisha B'Av, after which we will then dim the lights and begin the reading of the Megillah. When we read the Megillah, we have a custom here. If you're comfortable, you can sit on the floor leaning against something. In the old days, we used to use candles. Today, we use our electronic candle. It's our flashlights. But if you have a candle, you're more than welcome to light it. Just to kind of create the mood, the proper mood for the Megillah reading, okay? So without further ado, Rabbi.
Thank you for being here. Thank you for those of you at home for being here as well. Just wanted to share a few thoughts about Eicha. We are about to begin reading Eicha. Ken, Eric, and Cantor Brooks will read Eicha. Eicha in Hebrew means alas, A-L-A-S. So why do we call it Lamentations? We call it Lamentations because Eicha describes kinot. The word in Hebrew is kinot, and kinot means cries, sadness, funeral poems, sad poems. And that's exactly what lamentation describes as we read through the 5 chapters and 154 verses of the Megillah, the book that we're about to read. Eicha describes the sadness and the feeling that people had in the land of Israel before, during, and after the fall of Jerusalem and then destructions of the temple. There are those that argue whether part of it was written before and part of it after, because some of it relates to a vision of what will happen, and some of it relates to the exile that clearly happened after. There's a big question, who wrote it? Who wrote Eicha? The Talmud is telling us that Jeremiah, the prophet, wrote Eicha. That's good enough for me. I study the Talmud every day. That's all the answer I need. But not everybody agrees. About 2,350 years ago, the Torah, for the very first time, was translated to Greek. We call it the Septuagint. In this translation, the beginning of the book of Eicha begins with, after the destructions and the exile, Jeremiah sat down crying and wrote kinot, those sad poems, saying Eicha. Remember, our book, as we read it, begin with Eicha. It doesn't say anything about after the destruction and the exile, but that's the translation of the Torah. And the Bible subsequently was translated as well. Several hundred years later, the Torah and then the Bible were translated to Aramaic. Same thing. After the destructions of the temple and the exile, Jeremiah sat down crying, saying Eicha, as he wrote those kinot. So some say, hey, Jeremiah wrote it slightly before, slightly after. There's an expression of sadness in Eicha, but there's also an expression of hope. Many of us miss that. It's the hope that even people that sinned and got a terrible disaster falling on them. The destruction of the temple, the fall of Jerusalem, the death of many thousands of Jews, and the exile is the worst disaster to befall the Jews up to that point. So if you think about Abraham 4,000 years ago, in the year 586 when the temple was destroyed, almost 1,400 years, the worst event is this event. And that's why Jeremiah wrote it. Our friends in Christianity understood from the very beginning that Jeremiah wrote it, because they based their religion upon the Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Bible, and later the Aramaic translation. If you were to go to the Sistine Chapel in Rome and look at the roof, at the ceiling, there's a fresco. When you paint with water paint on limestone, on gypsum, on drywall, the water gets absorbed and the paint gets absorbed into the wall, and the wall becomes part of the painting. On the roof of the Sistine Chapel, Michelangelo, 500 years ago, painted the prophet Jeremiah saying keynote, saying those sad poems, funeral poems. About 100 years later, Rembrandt painted an oil painting of the prophet Jeremiah saying keynote, saying those poems. That is in a museum in Holland. You can actually go online and see both the Sistine Chapel and the museum. So who is Jeremiah? We know him as the prophet. Some people call him the crying prophet. Who was he? He was born in the village of Anatot, which is in the land allocated to the tribe of Benjamin, just north of Jerusalem, within the kingdom of Judah. Jeremiah was a son of a Cohen that served in the temple. So pretty much his path was set. He was going to become a Cohen at the temple. But God had other plans for him. Jeremiah didn't want the job. Jeremiah didn't like the job. He's going time and again to the people and to the leaders and telling them, go back to the path of Hashem, or God will bring all these disasters on you. Nobody wanted to hear that. Nobody liked it. In fact, they planned to assassinate him, just like they killed the prophet Uriah, who said similar things to them, but God protected him. King Zedekiah did not like him at all. He did not like what he was saying all the time about destruction is coming. It's coming from the north, the Babylonian. He put him in jail. He threw him into a dungeon in jail. You know, when you don't want to hear somebody talking and you are the almighty powerful person, you either kill the person or you put him in the dungeon. You know, when the Babylonian finally broke through the wall of Jerusalem, destroyed Jerusalem, and destroyed the temple, Jeremiah was in the dungeon. The Babylonian released him from the dungeon. Then the Babylonian exiled him to Egypt, and he died in Egypt. So when we think about Jeremiah and about all those things, we think about all this sad thing. This is why I said earlier, they call him the crying prophet. He kept crying to the people. He kept saying those things. He kept writing those keynote. But there's still hope. The prophet Zechariah said that during the Messianic era, Tisha B'Av will become a day of celebration. So we will not mourn sad day, the day that the two temples were destroyed, the day that the expulsion from England happened in the year 1290, the day that the expulsion from Spain happened in 1492, the day that the 12 spies came back with this bad report about the land of Israel, which caused everybody to die in the desert and not enter. The day full of pogroms, Zechariah saying in the Messianic era, will become a day of celebration. So we keep hope. And with that in mind, I'd like to share a story with you that brings some hope, at least to me. about 200 years ago, France. Napoleon is walking through the street of Paris. The entourage is walking on the street, and as they passed a synagogue, they hear crying and yelling coming from within. Napoleon sent one of the young officers to find out what happened. The officer comes back a few minutes later, and he said, the Jews are mourning the destructions of their temples. Napoleon is flying off the handle. He starts screaming, what? What temples? Where? Why was I not notified? The young officer, literally and figuratively shaking in his boots, is telling Napoleon the first temple was destroyed in the year 586, before the Common Era. The second one in the year 70 of the Common Era. Both of them were in Jerusalem. The first one was destroyed by the Babylonian, and the second one was destroyed by the Roman. Napoleon took a deep breath, recollect his thought, and said, people that mourn their temple for so many years will surely see it rebuilt. I hope and pray we all see it in our lifetime. Thank you.
Thank you, Rabbi, for those informative and inspirational words. Much appreciated by all of us. And so we'll begin now the Megillah reading. What I'd like to do is I'm going to dim the lights here. We'll keep that light on. There'll be a little light, obviously, for you to use it. And then Ken Levin is going to honor us by reading the first chapter. And so we'll just proceed, chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3. And like I said, I'm going to open up my phone. I'm going to use the flashlight that we have here. If you do have your phone, put it on silent, okay? just a reminder. I myself, I'm going to sit over here and kind of lean against the wall, and you'll be able to hear me, maybe not see me as well. But, okay, so Ken, whenever you're ready, please.
Now, as you can see, the next chapter, chapter 3, Gimel, has Aleph, Bet, and Gimel, 3 verse sets. And Rabbi Kiefer used to chant it as such, and I will do the same. Adi Agibera, Adi Visheverado, Oti Nahaglo Yola, Moshe Hipolor, Akti Yashud Yafo, Yadu Goyom, Ila Bisari, Barishi Hibat Motai, Bana Alai Beaka, Rohoshutla, Bimaka Shakim, Hoshivari, Imeti Olam, Dagar Bahadi, Below Eitzai, Yechbihidnech, Nechashti, Gab Kiezah, Vashavi, Satam Tevilati, Kadar Rakai, Bigazi, Nit Votai, Ivan. Dov Oregu, Lo Aria, Bemitzari, Drachai Sorer, Beyafashni, Samani Shomim, Darach Kashto, Beatsivedi, Kematara, Lapis, Evi, Dich Uliotai, Benehesh Pachto, Haiti, Sirko, Gokolami, Nidinadam Kohayo, Isbi Adi, Bamero, Rim, Irvadi, Lana, Viagrace, Machatzat, Shinahaich, Dishani, Ba'efer, Betis, Nach, Mishalom, Nafshi, Nasida, Dova, Flamor, Abadi, Tzli, Dochavi, Meldonai, Zachani, Murdi, Lana, Berosh, Zaporti, Korbat, Chia, Kalahai, Nafshi, Zota, Shiv, El, Bibi, Agi, Ofiro. Lasdi Adonai, Gilo Tamu, Gilo Kalura Kamal, Kodashim, Lavakarim, Rabbi, Maradaiha, Kelki Adonai, Amanavshi, Algi, Ofilo, Komaranai, Komahan, Nefesh, Tibrishenu, Tovi Atil, Jama, Yeshua Adonai, Tova Geber, Yisrael, Dikurav, Yeshiv Adam, Lidom, Konata Halalav, Yitei Lavardiu, Ulahayesh Bigva, Yitei Lamake Ulefi, Yisba Becherpa, Kilo Yinach Leola, Mahadonai, Yimho Gavarich, Amkaro Kazada, Kilo Ina Milibo Dayage, Beneish, Vidaki Gavaralav, Kolasir Hearet, Liatot, Bispad Gaver, Negef Nelion, Lavi Adam Berivo, Adonai Lora, Visa Marbate, Adonai Lotsiva, Mit Yagom Lotit, Sehara. Sari be'ada milu, penezakini lo nedaru, bachorim dechon naslau, unari ba'itz kashalu, sekini mishar shabatu, bachorim min ginataham, Shabbat misos libelu, nepach le'edo b'choledu, nafla ha'tiret hoshelu, o naladu yichadanu, ahozeh, hayadav alidenu, alile chashkuleinu, al artzion, shishamim, shu ali yochulo, ad Adonai le'olam tishem, Yisachar le'torvador, lama lanetzech tishkachinu, na'alenu le'orech yahavim. Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva, Hanishaminu ke'kedem. Im ma'os v'astanu, Gad safta alinu ad me'ol. Hashivenu Adonai elecha v'nashuva, Hanishaminu ke'kedem. I'm going to turn the lights on. We're going to recite a couple keynotes. Here's used to it.
I want to thank Ken and I want to thank Eric for participating in the reading of the Megillah. It was beautiful. The way you chanted really brings the tone to the fore, and we really appreciate that. So, my book here. Okay. What I like to do is I like to sing before we conclude the service with Aleinu and the basic prayers that end the general tefillah. As you can see in the back of this book, there are many keynote or songs of lamentation, poems, and so on that traverse Jewish history with the same theme, that of sorrow and mourning. And on page 144 is the one that is the most famous one that we sing, called Elit Zion. Before we did that, I saw a poem here that I thought was nice. There are so many, unfortunately, you might say. Okay. Yeah. Let me see what we have here for a second. Oh, I see, poetry, okay. Let's sing Elit Zion. It's on page 144, and the way we sing it is we sing the first couple lines is the chorus, and we go through the Kina all the way to the end, okay? It starts like this. Elit Zion ve'area kemo isha v'tzireha v'chiv tulach aguratzach al banureha ali armon asher nutash ve'ashmat sonadera ve'al biyad mecharfeil B'toch migdash chadareha, ali galod mishartel, me'imei shir zemareha, v'adama masher shubach, kimo me'mei oreha, ali egion mecholea, asher dama v'areha, v'avad asher shamim, Yuvitu Sanhedrea, Ali Zivche Temidea, Ufidionin Vechorea, Veachilu Kelecha, Umizbach Itorea, Ali Tape Melacheha, Beni David Gevirea, Veayav hayam asher chashach beit zaruch l'tahareha alei chavod asher gala beit charban devireha v'yahalochit asher lachat v'sam zakim chagoreha alei machatz v'rov makot asher huku nezireha v'yani butz elei selah ola lehane areya ali zimchad misanea b'sacham asheverea v'yalinu ivnei chorin nidi v'hazehoreha ali v'sha asher avda sulo derech ashureha v'yatzivod gehaleha Jesu v'ashechoreha ali kolod mecharveha beit rabu v'gareha v'yarik shad megadveha b'doch mishkan chatzeireha ali simcha asher chulal b'vika mimitzareha v'yal dachan yeshavulach Kishavu Shema Mareha Eli Tzion Vereha Kimo Isha Betzireha Vechiv Dulach Aguratzak Al Baneureha. Okay. Let's turn to page 153. I'll read this introductory paragraph, and then I'd like to read this poem. We'll read it together, page 153. Chaim Nachman Bialik was the major poet of the Hebrew Renaissance. In the spring of 1903, the civilized world was shocked by news reports of a bloody pogrom in Kishinev, Bessarabia. Bialik was sent there to report on the massacre, and he responded with a series of poems. The title of this poem, On the Slaughter, is drawn from the concluding phrase of the blessing the Shochit recites when performing ritual slaughter. The poem draws on language from Judges 6 and Psalms, often creating tension by reversing biblical meaning. Let's read together this poem translated by Amy Gottlieb. Heaven, pour your mercy on me. If there is a God whom I have not found, then pray for me. My heart is dead and I cannot pray. My hand is weak, there is no hope. How long, until when, how long? Hangman, here's my neck. Come and kill me. Break my neck like a dog. You have the arm, the axe. The whole earth is a scaffold to me. We are the few. My blood is free to flow. Strike the skull for murder's blood. The blood of the newborn and of the old are on your clothes and will never be washed, ever. Justice, if it exists, appear at once. But if it appears after I am destroyed, let its stone be hurled down forever. Let the heavens internally rot with evil, and evildoers go forth in violence. Live in your blood and be cleansed of your guilt. Cursed is the one who calls for vengeance. Satan has not yet created revenge like this. Revenge for the blood of a small child. Let its blood pierce the dark abyss. Let it eat away in the dark and break through all the foundations of the corrupted earth. Let's turn to page 156. Menachem Z. Rosenfeld, born in the displaced persons camp of Bergen-Belsen, is one of the foremost leaders of the sons and daughters of the survivors of the Holocaust. Let's read this responsibly on 156 through 157. I am the Jew who would have prayed 3 times a day, had black flames not spewed me into the August sky. I know, of course I know, that all the earth is innocent, only the killers killed. But covered by dust of that other eye, and of all the millions of the other eyes, even fields where flowers never withered, have become desolation, devastation. They stood there, smiling, Hans and Fritz, as they shoved me into the gas. Good riddance to the bloody Jews, they thought. It's almost time to eat, they thought. Now let's turn to page 158. Recite this prayer silently through the bottom of page 160. V'ata kodesh Hashem tilot Yisrael v'kar ze'ezel v'yamar. Kadosh, kadosh, kadosh. Ma'asvot ma'avot kadosh. Baruch HaGever asher yiftach b'Adonai, v'haya Adonai miftacho. Yidchu b'Adonai adayad, ki v'yad Adonai tzor olamim, yivtechu v'cha yodei shemecha, ki lo azavta dorshecha Adonai, Adonai chafetz daman sidko, yagdil Torah v'yadir. 162, Kaddish Shalem. Yidgadav yikadash shemei rabah. Yalmad yivrach ru'utei v'yamlich malchutei b'chaychod v'mechon v'chaychod beit Yisrael, b'hagalah u'vizman kariv v'yimru. Yehi Shemei Rabbah Mevarach Le'olam Olamei Olamaya Yitbarach V'yishtabach V'yitpahar V'yitramam V'yitnaseh V'yitadar V'yitalel Shemei D'Kudisha Le'ila Min Kol Birchata V'shirata Tishbechata V'nechamata Da'amiran B'alma V'yimru Yehi Shlama Rabbah Min Shemaya V'chayim Aleinu V'yal Kol Yisrael V'yimru Oseh Shalom B'mramav V'yaseh Shalom Aleinu V'al kol Yisrael v'imru Amen. I invite you all to rise, page 164. Aleinu l'shabeach Adon HaKol, latit v'dula liotzer b'reshit. Shalom asanu k'goyei haratzot, v'lo samanu k'mishpachot ha'adama. Shalom sam chalkinu kahem, v'mor aleinu k'chol hamonam. V'anachnu korim, mishtachavim u'modim, v'ifnei melech malchei hamalachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shehu notesh shamayim v'yosei aretz, moshadi karo b'shamayim mima'al, shchina uzol b'kafei meromim, hu Eloheinu ein od, emet malkinu efes ulato, hakatuv v'torato, v'yadata hayom v'hashivota elavavecha, ki Adonai hu Elohim, b'shamayim mima'al v'al ha'aretz mitachat, ein od. Akin v'kavach. כתוב בתורתך, אדוני ימלוך לעולם ועד, ונאמר והיה אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, שמו אחד. May be seated except for those reciting the Mourner's Kaddish, observing a yard site. We do that together on page 166. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei rabbah, bi'alma divrach dirutei, bi'amlich malchutei, v'chayechon v'yomechon, v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, ba'agala u'bizman kari v'yimru. Amen. Yehi shemei rabbah mevarach, le'olam olamei olamaya, yitparach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitramam v'yitnaseh, v'yithadar v'yitaleh v'yithalal shemei d'kudisha brichu, le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiran bi'olma v'imru. Amen. Yehi shalama rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu, v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, V'yaseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'yimru amen. You may be seated. All right, this concludes the service. Like I said, there is a tradition on Tisha B'Av, as we leave the sanctuary, to refrain from at least being gratuitous in saying hello. You can nod your head, maybe a wink, I don't know. It's up to you. But as I leave, I'll do my best to kind of sneak out. Kind of like the way I do after Kol Nidre. I want to sneak out because there's 1,000 people that want to talk to me, and I got to fast and sing all day. So it's going to be kind of like that type of thing, okay? But again, I just want to thank all of you for being here. It was really nice to have you here to help make this minyan. We have another minyan tomorrow morning at 9:30, where we'll all goes well. We'll read Torah and commemorate Tisha B'Av as well. Again, Ken and Eric, thank you for participating. Really, I personally and all of us appreciate it. Thank you, Rabbi Mike, for being here and bringing your congregants with us. I really appreciate your remarks. Look forward to celebrating or sharing more tefillah, more simchas with you and your congregation. So with that, I'll just say adieu.